There is a popular saying in leadership that if you think you're leading and there's nobody following you, you are only going on a walk. On this platform, you are going to learn principles of leadership. You are going to encounter different leaders. You are going to learn about how you can grow as a leader, how you can make an impact. My name is Samuel Eyim, and I'm the host for the leadership platform. I am a leadership coach, a lawyer by profession, a John C. Maxwell certified coach. I have been in corporate life in senior positions for several years, and now I run the Center for Transformational Leadership, where we train and coach leaders to become better leaders. And I invite you to go on a journey with us as we discuss the subject of leadership in the coming weeks.
This and every Saturday, you have opportunity to ask questions, share your views on important leadership matters.
Do you have a dream? Do you have a vision? Do you have a goal for your life? And will your goal be realized? What do you need to realize it? Is the goal your own? Have you counted the costs of that goal? Do you know what you need to be able to achieve that goal? Do you really want to be successful at achieving that goal? My name is Samuel Eyim, CEO of the Center for Transformational Leadership in Africa. And I personally want to invite you to our upcoming masterclass, Put Your Dream to the Test. It's a set of questions that we're going to give you answers to ahead concerning your vision, your dream, so that you are sure that your vision and your dream will be achieved. Join our one-day masterclass on the 19th, 20th, 26th, or 27th of January 2023. Or you can join our weekend class on the 21st and 22nd, or the 28th and 29th January from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And register, because it's going to give you the resources, the ideas, the tools that will ensure that your dreams don't remain as dreams, your goals don't remain as goals, but that they are achievable. We're going to equip you to be successful. Make a date with us. Register now for our masterclass, and you will not regret it.
Hello everyone, my name is Elsie, and I'm excited that I just completed a 15-week journey with the CTL Africa team on the 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth by John C. Maxwell.
From the law of pain, I also learned that every problem introduces a person to himself. Honestly, till you face a problem, you wouldn't know the things that you actually have within you.
The journey for me personally was a wake-up call. Before I joined this journey, I wasn't actually learning at all. I wasn't adding any logic to what I knew.
So the law of trade-off is saying that you have to give up to grow up. So things that I think are not going to have maximum impact on my life, I have to trade them off.
I want to grow. I am not stopping now. I am continuing. And as far as I'm concerned, like it says, you cannot give what you don't have. I definitely will have to give what I have learned off to others and then get more so that I can continue giving. I am not going to be a reservoir. I am going to be a river, and therefore I'm going to continue learning to be able to give of my best.
Ordinary people can achieve extraordinary results on a consistent basis if they have a system, if they have a plan.
Hello. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Leadership Platform. My name is Samuel Ayim, and I'm excited to be with you this evening together with the team. Everybody is here. Sarah is here. Mercy is here. Kofi is here. Vivian is here. And we are excited that you are here also to join us to learn together. This evening, we would encourage you to start asking your questions ahead of time. We want to make sure that we focus on the questions that you have. And so those of you who are already online, please start sending through your questions that you have about financial planning, about what is going on, the debt restructuring, the debt exchange, whatever is bothering your mind on finance, the economy, your pocket, your investments, your challenges. Please start putting them ahead, because our speaker says he wants to be of service to you. He wants to address your specific questions. So please feel free to start. I have Her Ladyship, Cynthia Martinson, who has joined. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for joining so early. We appreciate you. Ebenezer Sam is here. Thank you, Ebenezer, for joining. We encourage those of you who have already joined to introduce yourself. Please tell us where you are joining from. We know you are on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever medium you are joining from. Please do us the honors by telling us your name and where you are joining from, and we would be glad to announce you to the world. So welcome to the Leadership Platform. This evening, we have an important discussion. And the discussion is going to be around finance. Those of us in Ghana know that our economy, from the head of state to the finance to parliament, all the leaders tell us that our economy is in crisis. But this is not just us in Ghana, but there's also a crisis across the world, which is also affecting us. Businesses are in crisis, families are in financial crisis, and people are wondering what is going to happen. Investments are being affected in so many ways. And so we know that our government in Ghana is seeking help from the IMF, and therefore requires some structural changes to our investments and so on. So this evening, we are dedicating the hour and a half to discussions on financial planning in the context of financial crisis. When there is a financial crisis, how do you manage your finances? All of us know that money is so important to our existence. So please go ahead, introduce yourself. Let me announce you to the world, and then I will introduce our speaker to you. All right? Okay. I'm not seeing anybody introducing, but I know that people are there. So many of you join and you don't introduce yourself. But this evening, we want you to do so that you can ask all your questions. Alexander Kusiapia is here from Cape Coast. Peter Derry is here, joining from Ghana. Good evening, Peter. Thank you so much. And let me see who else is here. I see Obuo Richie is here. I see Ben Amwakon is here from Kumasi. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, this evening, we are excited to have one of our regular speakers and one who is known in the country. She is on different
platforms, TV stations. She's very highly sought after when issues of finance are discussed. And so we decided that she would be the best person to invite at this point in time when leaders are wondering what they should do, how they should structure their investment. Even the financial people in the banking sector, in the insurance sector, everywhere, the security sector are all challenged to know what to do at this point in time. So we have a speaker who is going to discuss, and she says, as I've announced, that she would prefer to address your specific questions more than just sharing general information. So this speaker is passionate about helping individuals, professionals, families, SMEs, corporate board to achieve happiness associated with financial and spiritual liberation. And mark that, that is her purpose, to help you achieve happiness that comes from financial and spiritual liberation through good governance, promotion, financial consulting, transformational coaching, and leadership development and knowledge exchange. And that is, she has a tank of knowledge. She has 20 years industry experience doing what she loves. She's chartered banker, chartered wealth manager with ACIS UK, bound by their ethics and integrity standards. She holds an MBA Finance, BSc Finance, Ghana Securities Industry certifications, and is a human behavioral expert. Is a DISC consultant. She knows how you behave when you have money and so on and so forth. She is an international coaching federation ISC member, observing the prescribed course of ethics. She is also a Maxwell Leadership certified coach, speaker, and trainer. Additionally, she holds professional coaching certification from Coach Masters Academy in Singapore, Global Leadership Assessment 360. Our speaker is very well qualified to speak on the subject of financial planning during financial crisis, with particular reference to the Ghana domestic exchange program and how it's affecting the financial world. What I don't see on her CV is also that she is a reverend minister. So I am so excited to invite my good friend, Lady Reverend Doris Ahiate, to the leadership platform to share with us. And we're going to, she would do a quick presentation, but as she goes along, we will be coming in to ask a few questions. As your questions come in, also we'll bring it to her attention and she will address them. So her presentation is going to be slightly different this time around. So Doris, yes, you are very welcome to the leadership platform. I am particularly privileged that you always give us the opportunity to learn from you. We're having a lot of challenges. We're having a lot of questions. We are having people are overwhelmed. What's going on in the country? Where should they put their money? Is the economy going to survive? They taught us so many things, how we should manage our money. We follow them, but now we are confused. We put it in Men's Gold. They said it was a scam. We went to financial institutions, bank crash. We lost money. Government says we should take bonds. We all moved to take bonds. Now we are, government says our bonds, they can't pay us. So these are so many questions on our minds, and we want you to throw some light on some of these things for us. So take us away, and from time to time, I will come in and throw in some of the questions that are coming up to you. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sam, and thank you to all of you, the team at CTL, for the great work that you do to help us advance financial literacy, which is very crucial for all of us, because all of our lives we do engage in transactions which are settled financially. And yet, when we go to school to learn about our regular education that prepares us for life, in this part, we don't have any financial literacy. So thank you. And let me say good evening from my base here in Accra, somewhere on the coast of Pampram, to all of you, wherever you are sitting across the world, my fellow Ghanaians who may be sitting in Ghana, and then other people joining us on the call. And as Sam was speaking, I just kept telling myself, breathe, breathe, breathe. Let's breathe. Let's all breathe, because the oxygen does all of us a lot of good. Yes, there's so much turbulence, there's so much uncertainty and confusion out there. And guess what? If we focus on digesting and analyzing all this information that are not positive, they don't support our well-being and help us with our creativity in fashioning out our way out of this mess. So please remember to breathe. Breathe. Okay. Thank you very much. I want to start my conversation this evening with the developments that's going on. If the team can kindly project my slides. We, sometime in October last year, was at the Ring the Bell on the Ghana Stock Exchange when the subject came up, and I recall saying that definitely if the government is going to do anything, they are going to engage us in the public, so people should calm down and relax. Fast forward a few months down the line. Please go to the next slide. We have the announcement. There may have been, next slide, please. There may have been some level of interaction. And clearly, the pushback that we are seeing suggests that there was the need for additional consultation. How did we find ourselves where we are when we talk about the domestic debt exchange? What is it all about? Over the years of our history, and we are turning 66 in just a couple of months, our economy has ramped up our debt, okay? Because of the nature of the structure of our economy, we haven't been very sustainable in the way we generate revenue as an economy or as a country and the way we spend it. Think about it this way. In your own home, what we call the micro setup, you must earn some money before you can spend it if you are in Ghana. Elsewhere, credit card might make it possible for you to spend before you have earned it. But in most jurisdictions and in most homes, you make the money and then you spend it. Now, imagine a situation where you are spending way above how much you are making. You'll find yourself at a point where you are significantly indebted to different institutions. And when you are in that scenario, if you were a business, you risk bankruptcy. Please go back to the first slide. And if you are an individual, you are likely to have somebody attempt to throw you into jail or something. And so that is what has happened in our economy. We have accumulated debt over the years. There has been a very rapid accumulation in the last 6 years or so. And we are at a point where when you measure how much we owe versus our base GDP, we have exceeded 100%. Now, we also find ourselves in a situation where we don't have liquidity to service our obligations that are falling due. When I talk about government's obligations that are falling due, they would look something like you haven't borrowed. This is for those that I need to break it down to. You've gone to take a loan from a bank. They've given you installments that you must pay every month or every 2 weeks. And when the time has come, you don't have money to pay. So we are in default. And because we don't want to be in default, and it's not a good thing, because when you are in default, nobody wants to lend fresh funds to you. We approached the International Monetary Fund to help us. And when we approached the International Monetary Fund, they also gave us conditions. conditions and frameworks against which we will assess whether we qualify to have a successful application. And that is where the domestic debt exchange comes in. It's coming in because when we did our assessment against the framework, it's clear that our debt levels is not sustainable at the point where we are, where it's in excess of 100%, and we need to bring it down to 55%. How are we able to do this, bringing it to 55%, given that the money that we mobilize, revenues as we call it, domestically is not enough? If you look at all that we mobilized last year, it was not enough to cover all our obligations. So we constantly have to borrow to keep ourselves afloat. Let's go to the next slide. And so in order to do this, the government would have to undertake certain activities. And the reason why it's important for them to embark on these activities that include some fiscal adjustment, some fundamental economic restructuring, as well as taking a new look at our debt portfolio, which has led to the DDE. These are important for us to do so that we may qualify for the IMF program. Please go to the next slide. Now, if you look at the strategy that the government is adopting, I've already touched on the reforms and the debt operation, which gives rise to the DDE. And you may be wondering, it's going to cover not only domestic debt, but also external debt. When we talk about domestic debt, it is loans that have been advanced to the government by citizens of the country through the treasury instruments that are auctioned every week. So maybe you bought treasury bill, you loaned money to the government, you bought some bonds, Dachi, ESLA, all these instruments, they were not auctioned weekly or monthly, but there was a season when they were auctioned and you patronized it. They all form part of the domestic debt, and the external ones are the Eurobonds, etc., that are issued on the international markets. Kindly go to the next slide. So having said that the domestic bond includes treasury bill, does not mean that I'm saying that the domestic debt exchange program is affecting, please go to the next slide, is affecting the treasury bills, because so far the official documents that we have seen has not indicated that it's going to include the treasury bills. Are you able to kindly go to the next slide? Now, if you are wondering which securities are impacted, some of you would have received letters or emails from your fund managers and institutions where you have invested funds to the effect that you have the option to opt in for the domestic debt exchange or otherwise. We have the treasury bills. Treasury bills, like I said, are exempted. They are the short term up to 1 year for now. But then we have treasury notes and bonds, which would be from 2 years and over. We have the ESLA, I mentioned Dachi, and we have cocoa bills, as well as a few other non-marketable securities, and also those who are invested in US dollar bonds. So all these securities are eligible under the domestic debt exchange program. And if you look at the exposure to these securities, if you take out the treasury bills, they amount to about 55%. I mean, that will help us to bring our debt to GDP to the sustainable level of 55% by the year 2028, which has been set as the target. The question now is, on this call, I believe we have a number of individuals. We have pensioners, we have people representing small groups and other interests that would wish to be exempted. And the reality is that for us to get that threshold, taking certain groups or individuals out significantly may impair our ability to meet the threshold. I'm just speaking the facts, okay? I'm not soliciting, I'm not making any appeals. Shall we go to the next slide, please? Now, because this is a necessary evil that has to be done, at least as far as it's been presented to us, we know that we are going to be hit significantly when it comes to our activities. And some contingency measure has been put in place so that it will help cushion the economy a little bit so that we do not completely crash. Let me use that word. We are crashing, but so that we do not completely crash. And the provisions that have been made through the Fiscal Sustainability Fund is currently accessible and available to the institutions. We do not have clarity that individuals, the micro units, have access to such liquidity support to help them. Now, if you think about the institutions, maybe the banks, there will be the need for some people to go do certain withdrawals, and they need support so that we don't have a situation where these institutions are not able to fulfill their obligations. So there are special provisions being catered to support them. When it comes to the individuals in homes, they are also going to face some liquidity challenges. There are medical bills to be paid, school fees to be paid, and other obligations that will be falling due, rent, in a country where rent is paid years in advance and all that. And people's funds are locked up and they must continue to live. So for them, what is their fallback in order to meet their liquidity needs? Kindly go to the next slide. I believe that for us to get equity, we have to come to the point where there's some provision for the individuals if we are going to make this acceptable to the other people outside of the institutions. What is going to be the implications of the domestic debt exchange program? Already, the general public are quite disenchanted about this, and people's confidence. Listen to how my good brother and Sam presented the case. We went to men's school, then we got our fingers bent, we're carried to go to government bonds and bills, and now this. Okay, so people are losing confidence in the banking system, the entire financial system as a result. That is one of the implications of this domestic debt exchange and how it has been presented so far. When people lose this confidence, they are not going to deposit their cash in the banks, and they may be discouraged from patronizing the financial securities that we have. And the interesting thing is that all the time we have people that have excess cash and we have people that need that cash. The excess cash holders bring it, we call them the surplus units. They deposit into the banks, and this become a big pool of fund out of which we can create loans. Okay, these loans go to those that need to finance some projects that they are embarking on. We call them the deficit unit. And in this process, the volume of money supply, as we call it in our parlance, increases. It expands. We call it money creation. And you can imagine that if we don't have the retail sector having an appreciable level of confidence and they refuse to deposit, where still decide to withdraw their balances from the banks, then the banks' balances are not going to be significant enough for them to create lending. And I think that weakens the entire function of money creation that the bank holds. The other implication that unfortunately may result is a weakening in the legitimacy of our local currency, for the fact that people are not sure that, because these things translate in rising inflation, tomorrow their money in the local currency is going to be worth anything. And so they may prefer to price, even though it's illegal, they may prefer to price in a foreign currency. They may prefer that you pay them in a foreign currency. There's a means for them to do that. And people may begin to transact in the foreign currency. We've seen this happen some time ago in Zimbabwe. That was not a domestic debt exchange, but it was a collapse of the financial system and galloping runaway inflation kind of scenario. Okay, so these are some of the likely consequences we'll see in the financial system. And on the individual, it's just a decline also in the options that they have when it comes to investments. Please go to the next slide for me. So the question that a lot of people ask is this the only way, domestic debt exchange program, is this the only way for us to meet our qualification criteria for the IMF? I think the question on the table is our ability to meet the debt sustainability requirement. And so I believe that there are other ways, and over here I'm also aligned with the Individual Bondholders Forum, led by Senor Jose, that there are alternative ways. When it comes to the fiscal adjustment provisions, you are talking about how can we spread and extend how much we are able to bring in as tax revenues, okay? How much revenues are we able to mobilize versus how much are we spending? Historically, we haven't been very efficient with our mobilization. Now, on top of that, if your spending is almost unlimited, then you are going to be handicapped. And I think that's an area where we need to look at how we can cut the spending into more realistic levels as a way to achieve debt sustainability. This is going to take a longer time than trying to get people to do domestic debt exchange, but it is an acceptable and a good way that will not shock the economy too much. We also have the option of growing our GDP. That's the base. If we are productive and we are not doing, we do a lot of trading in Ghana. We bring things in and then we sell. It doesn't so much grow the economy as in if we are producing things directly. Okay, so if we are producing and we have an expanding agri sector, manufacturing sector, services, then we can have an expanded economic base through the GDP, and this could help us. If we were to do a domestic debt exchange, it would be helpful for us to take another look at the current terms and nature of it to make it more innovative. And that is what is happening. You would be aware that the individual bondholders have had meetings with the Ministry of Finance and the government reps. There has also been meetings between the banking sector and financial institution sector, indeed, to see how we might make this a win-win for both sides, the government team and then the investors, the borrower and the lender, if you like. Another recommendation is if we can minimize the extent to which government is mobilizing all the lending resources available, because when government borrows so much and government is considered risk-free and it is easy money, even the banking institutions will resort to that and deny the private sector, which contributes directly to GDP growth, the much needed capital for us to grow the economy. So that's another thing that we can look at. And then there is the bit about how we negotiate some of the contracts, especially in the extractive sector, some of the mineral rights, the way we arrange and accept certain levels of royalties are also an area that we can look at, all the exemptions that deny us of much needed revenues. And then also commitment to fight corruption. There's a lot of leakages. There's a lot of missing accountability that could help us stem the trend of unaccounted for funds that starve an already very lean government revenue envelope. I will rest here and then take some questions.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doris. And already there are questions coming in. So my thank you for giving us this good overview. I get the impression that, and correct me if I'm wrong, as a nation, it's because we've really not managed our finances well. Because how, I mean, as an individual, how is it that you borrow when you know that you're not getting income and you're just spending? Is that a good summary of what is happening to us as a nation? I'm asking this because we need to learn that lesson on the national level and bring it down to the local level. Because if you're just borrowing and spending, how come that all the money we've borrowed, we've not put it in something that we can pay back? What's happening there in terms of finance and so on? What's the missing link that we borrowed the money, we spent it, and now we can't pay, and then we are telling our creditors, please wait, we can't pay you. Where's that money? I'm trying to bring it to the ordinary man's language on the street for us to appreciate what's going on and what lessons we can learn.
Thank you. That's a very good question. And I'm saying in my head, I wish I know where that money is sitting. I would go and bring it right now so that we don't have to go through the... And you are spot on. We haven't managed our financial affairs as an economy well, sadly. And this is not due to the dearth of experienced and qualified professionals. I don't think so. I think it is the lack of discipline. Whenever I talk finance, there's the behavioral aspect of finance that deals with people's behaviors and emotions. And there's a lot of discipline that is required for you to achieve your financial targets. And like all discipline, it's not pleasant to go through. And so it's very easy for us to go chasing the fun, and then we throw caution to the wind. And before we realize, we are in deep rabbit holes. Let me use that. Okay. So that's what Ghana has experienced over the years. In the home setting, when you want to be prudent with the management of your financial affairs and you must borrow, the recommendation is that you really have a productive venture that you are going to put this money you are borrowing to. And that the returns or the benefits that you generate from investing in that venture with the money that you have borrowed will be more than the interest that you have to pay on that loan. So you end up embarking on whatever project, whatever initiative, and enjoying benefits after paying off whatever borrowing that you undertook. We find ourselves in a situation where we are borrowing for projects. Some of them are laudable infrastructural projects. One of the questions you may ask yourself is whether we are at that stage where that infrastructure should be our priority. For example, let's say you're a young family and you have a need for mobility, and therefore you need to purchase a vehicle. If you bought a Smarties, a smart vehicle, or a Tico, or any of these interesting, cute vehicles that are very fuel efficient and also space on the road efficient, you are going to achieve your mobility. That's your priority, is the mobility, and you try to find the safest and the most economic way to do it. You could also choose to invest in a Land Rover or a Jeep, the latest, or Mercedes-Benz 4MATIC or something like that. Or even you could go for a Ferrari or, really posh cars. They will help you achieve your mobility, all right. But the status in life where you are at, is that kind of infrastructure what you need? Is that what you should prioritize in order to achieve a solution to your need for mobility? And so in the infrastructural side, it's possible that sometimes we get carried away. And also when it comes to selection of service providers, we may want to rub shoulders with clients that may not be in the same revenue bracket as us. And so we end up having to pay extra, assuming that these contracts are fair value prices that we are paying, that they are probably above our means, and we should have considered the option of sourcing for something domestically that will create positive ripple effects throughout the economy. Projects that will give jobs to the citizens, for example, could be ways that we could have gone about some of our infrastructural investment. That's just one example I use. And there may be other ventures we've embarked on that you may wonder, is this really our priority at this stage in the history of the economy? I think that there has been room for us to be more prudent in our financial choices.
Yeah. Thank you so much, because as you answer, I find lessons for us individuals. Yes, we can see on the national level what is going on, but the point about borrowing, because I hear a lot of people who come and say, oh, if I can get somebody to lend me some money, I hope Doris is not gone. Let me see. Okay. If I can find somebody to lend me some money, then I will be able to do this and this and this business. And the banks are not lending us money. And so I get a lesson that just borrowing alone or get availability of lending alone is not enough for you to be successful financially, because we see our government actually borrowed, and there was plenty money. We are borrowing $3 billion every year, $3 billion every year. The money is there, but now the usage of it has become a problem. And the other thing is, when you borrow, what do you use the money on? Infrastructure. And I've seen a lot of business people who go to borrow money, and as they say, they go and buy all those fancy cars, marry another woman, and then they have 4 or 5 chicks by the side and all that. It seems to me that our political leaders are just behaving like what some of us business ordinary people do, and mess up our finances. What do you say to that?
Yes, and you are spot on. I would put it to 2 things: discipline and accountability. Whether you are in a public office, whether you are running your own business, or whether it is your home that you are running, you need a significant dose of discipline. Discipline means self-control. You are making prudent choices. This is not the right time for me. I don't have to do this. This is enough for me. This is the resources that I have. What can I do? Have I maximized it? How efficiently am I deploying the resources that I have access to? How am I accounting for it? Because oftentimes when we also see the lacking of discipline or missing accountability, it usually would create room for diversion of funds. And so, like you mentioned, you've gone to the bank, you've taken a loan, it's supposed to go into your business, and now you end up in a very fine ride, or you end up with some additional checks, or you try to beautify the ambience of your business center when the beautification may not necessarily be what adds to drawing more customers into your shop or making them stay longer so they can spend with you. We really have to work on that bit of us, whether we are individuals in public office or in our homes or businesses.
Great. Thank you so much. There are a few more questions coming, and let me go to, let me see the first question I have here from Ebenezer, who says, what will you advise those who have investments in government shares? He says shares, even though they have been assured that treasury bills will not be affected by the financial sector haircut. Well, I believe he's talking about investment in government securities and so on. So if you have some securities, T-bills, and so on, and even the bonds, what will you advise people to do?
Okay. So I have a last slide which could be projected at this stage, and these are my thoughts, okay? My thoughts about the times that we are in are as follows.
Next slide.
Yes. My thoughts are that, you see, the financial options that are available to us have not changed because of the current development that we are in. The financial principles, time value of money, risk return, liquidity, etc., they haven't changed. We just happen to be going through a difficult phase. And I want to use the opportunity to encourage investors that this is not the end of life, and it is not going to also last forever. And so be mindful that whatever you do, you are keeping an eye on your very long-term goals, because in the future, you are going to be alive, you are going to be there. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where the future comes, your long-term goals are very far away because there was a season when there was financial crisis like we are currently going through. And as a result, you decided to put a hold or a stop to all your investing actions. What I recommend you do is, however, reassess your risk appetite. Before you invest in anything, the risk return principle says that you get rewarded for the amount of risk that you are taking. So there's a positive correlation. The higher the risk, the higher the return. When you are seeing or expecting high return, know that it is coming with high risk as well. And we all know that when we say governments or treasury investments or sovereign investments are risk-free, we basically mean that governments continue, there's continuity. Unlike businesses that can file for bankruptcy, people that can die, governments go, governments come, let me put it that way. So that's what we mean by risk-free. What this means is that when government has borrowed from you or you have participated in some treasury investment, at some point in the future, almost definitely you will be paid. Whether you'll be paid the full amount or you can have a scenario where a DDE affects how much you are paid is another story, but you definitely are going to get some funds. And so if you are in treasury bill, the options available to you, but all these are going to be your choice, and make a choice that is acceptable and suitable for your circumstances. I like to say that as a professional, every recommendation, specific recommendation, must go with the profiling of the client. And this is a public engagement. I do not know your profile and therefore what is suitable for your circumstances. And so I will depend on everyone listening to apply the general comments that and recommendations that come from here according to what is suitable for your circumstances. One of the things you need to check out for is your financial obligations that are falling due soon. Okay. If you have obligations falling due soon and you may need liquidity in order to take care of them, if you had taken somebody's money on a short-term period in order to invest in treasury bills or bonds, and you find yourself in this crisis where you are given an option to opt in for the DDE or have to wait without certainty on how you are going to receive your money, you are under pressure. You are under pressure to secure some proceeds. Okay. So for somebody like that, you may want to opt out. But if you don't have that kind of financial pressure and you were investing towards a certain long-term future, you can relax and be calm in the midst of all that is happening. And you may choose, depending on how much confident and comfortable you are, to go for the DDE. When you choose to opt in for the debt exchange, know that you have crystallized, you have locked yourself in to whatever terms there are. I know the Securities and Exchange is trying to negotiate for if the terms get better for those who did not opt in, then those who opted in should be given the same benefits. But for now, those that are not comfortable with the exchange are advised to not go for it. But if you are comfortable, it's a choice that you must make. Then go for the domestic debt exchange program. I think there's been also room for those that want to change their mind to also do so. If initially you opted in and now you don't want to opt in again, I think that provision has been made. People are wondering where else they can put their money, and that is where I came up with these. These are not all the places that you can, or options that are available. And these options have not become available suddenly. because of what is happening. They have always been there, and people have preferred other alternatives for reasons that may best be known to them, sometimes including the fact that it's fairly passive. You buy some treasury bills and you go to sleep. Investing in direct project is something that has always been there as an option, but it requires your time. Investing in direct projects may be like there's a business, there's some venture, and you are putting your money in it. You are becoming an entrepreneur or a shareholder or a partner, and you must take interest in checking up on it for accountability to make sure that things are running the way that it should. Okay, that's an option that has always been there, and it is still there, and you may want to consider it at this time. The other option that may be a bit of an outlier but important now is investing in yourself. So if you have some funds in your hands and you are wondering, where do I put this money in these turbulent times, I'm recommending that you can pursue self-development that earns you additional skills which you may monetize, some new competency. There's a lot of change in the workplace. There are new skills and competencies that are needed. Maybe you don't have it, or it's not very sharp. You may want to invest in training yourself to sharpen those skills. You want to also invest in your sanity. Investing in your sanity may look like not going after all the negative news and developments and feeding your mind on it and meditating on it, okay, day and night, but intentionally focusing on positive things and the possibilities. Somebody was telling me that possibilities resonate with him. So find out those things that are good, that lift your spirit, that you can take an action on, and start taking some action in that direction. And you're able to do this when you are mentally sound. Okay, so invest in your sanity. Hang out with people, material, resources, shows, and programs that will give you that soundness of your mind. And then in your health, you are going to be spending money, and I keep saying that invest in a way that gives you good health in times like this. Good sanity contributes to good health. So look at the choices and the options that you are making so that they help you improve on the quality of your health, your physical, mental, and emotional health. Also invest in people. This option to invest in people has always been there. How do we invest in people? You help them in their ventures. You pour yourself into them, as in you are impacting them through mentoring or coaching or inspiring them, some competency, some skills that you have. You are teaching it to other people so that their lives may also become better. You are sharing what you have with people. I call that investing in people. Some people have projects that is taking forever to complete. It's your dream house, as we call it, or some land that you bought and you haven't developed. This could be a good time for you to focus on developing it. And also investing in land and new properties is an option that you can consider at this time. And I like to say that as you invest in these things, be careful not to lock yourself so deeply up in assets that you don't have any liquidity at all. You don't have cash. And so if you suddenly have to take care of an emergency that requires cash or liquidity on your bank account, that is zero. Be very careful that you maintain a certain level of liquidity. And then you can also invest in durable stocks. I know of people that invested in stocks like iron rods, people that invested in stocks like cement. Because of the trend in inflation, they invested in these stocks. You may have stocks that are durable. They are not going to get rotten tomorrow or next month. And so you buy them at a certain rate today, and then you sell them as their value appreciates in the future. That's also an investment. And it's also like the direct investment, because it's going to take your time, and it comes with its own risk when you are in direct investment. The risk that you don't get a buyer at the time that you want to sell. Then we have bank deposits. Yes, I alluded to the fact that the banks are still going to need the deposits. Banks are institutions that are protected, and they are definitely not going to be allowed to collapse. Even if some of them are on shaky grounds, as a result of their exposure to the bonds and the domestic debt. They still are a good institution. Now, we have always recommended diversification. And so whenever you are investing, you should have your portfolio structured such that if it is 1,000 cedis, there's some 100 in direct investment, there's some 50 in bank deposits, there's some this here and this there, and spread it nicely. Okay. So it's still a good time for you to diversify and have some balances sitting on bank deposits and fixed deposits maybe with the banks. There are also opportunities where you get to invest outside the country. And if you are that kind of investor who has that access and opportunity, it has always been there. And it's an opportunity for you to look at as an alternative. And then we also have equities. We have companies that are listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange. And you may buy shares in them. They are private companies owned by the public. You would have to select carefully the kind of company so that it's a company that is doing well and is thriving in these difficult economic times. Because if you invested in a company that is not counter-cyclical, then it's going to go down in the same direction that the economy is going. And there's professional advice you can seek with almost all the financial institutions and with professionals like myself. Okay, so you can continue to invest in these securities, but the caution here is that in moderation, you should be doing a diversified portfolio. And we are doing this because the future is going to come. Your long-term plans don't have to be shelved. You have to keep working towards them. The pace may be hampered. You must still make those sacrifices. Today I was engaging some elderly couple, and you can see that you always have to make some sacrifices. There's always a price that you must pay in order to achieve those aspirations that you have for the future in the long term. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. Kofi, you can put that down. And then there are so many questions coming relating to some of the things you've just said. Alexander Kusiapia say, how can I easily be in Ghana and build a profitable investment portfolio in the American economy?
So you have to do this through institutions, okay? Licensed institutions is the right way to go. So you speak to the investment banks, or you may even speak to your commercial bank and express your interest in investing in stocks or securities that are outside of your country. In the financial system, we are always keeping an eye for potential money laundering, money that has been earned in a way that negatively impacts society, money earned through terrorism, human trafficking, and things like that, gambling, ammunition, arms trade, and things like that. And so they will take you through that vetting process to be sure that it's clean money. But once it is clean money and you are able to pass all the criteria, you should be able to invest in any securities once the institution you are investing through has the access and the partners to execute it for you.
Can you open
now? Let me also add that.
Can you open an account in a foreign bank and ask the foreign bank to help you invest?
Yes, that's also an option. Now, there are requirements for you to open an account in a foreign bank, and you need to, one of them is address. Okay, so you need to be able to meet the requirements that the bank has for you. And once you meet the requirements, that shouldn't be a challenge. Then there are also institutional investing. In institutional investing, the institutional investor invests on your behalf. And so you don't need an independent, if you like, qualification criteria that you must meet before they can do it for you. Take note that on the African continent, we have a number of economies that are not going through what we are going through. Yes, we do have a global inflationary trend, prices that are pretty up, higher than they used to be 24 months ago, and on a trend that is faster than 24 months ago. However, Ghana is in a very unique situation. And this unique situation that Ghana is in, it's not something that is regular. It's a historic thing. If you look across the world's history, I can almost count on my fingers how many countries have gone through what we are going through, where we've come to the point of debt default. Okay, so it is not usual. It's not usual for you to come to a point where you are beginning to lose confidence in government bonds. So don't think that our neighbors are going through the same. It's not the norm. It's a special season that we are going through, and I am confident that we'll come out of this. We had the 2007-2008 global financial crisis. The record states that it lasted for about 18 months. Okay. And beyond the 18 months, when that season was over, the impact on the economy still lingered on. It was not until about the year 2014, for example, that US job unemployment rate sort of went back to the levels that it was at pre the crisis. Okay. So what we have here, when your question is how long is it going to take? It's going to, we'll finish this domestic debt exchange, and things will begin to look like they are turning around. But the actual impact, it's taking hold for you to feel like my life is back to normal, if that exists. Usually it may be an improvement. It's a new experience, so it may not be comparing like for like. But for you to feel comfortable again could take up to 4-6 years for you to feel like, yes, I'm comfortable again. We should brace ourselves. But while we are bracing ourselves, let's be assured that we will live through this and we will come out of it and continue to have our lives. And don't forget the other countries on the continent where you may be able to easily access investment opportunities that are more rewarding. Thank you.
All right. And related to that, Ira Magozi is saying, thank you, Madam Doris. During and beyond the DDE program, how can we improve discipline and accountability in government and society to avoid a repeat of this situation?
Brilliant question, and thank you for that. How can we ensure or develop discipline? We've been to the IMF, is it 7 times or so?
17.
So thank you, 17 times. Each time we have gone to the IMF, I ask myself, what is it really that they bring on board? It's not the amount of money they bring on board really that makes the difference. But all our potential partners feel confident that if IMF is on board, there's a certain level of discipline that will be achieved. And how does IMF achieve that discipline? It's holding us to account. Now, it's like, I like to reference my father when I was growing up. Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International said they were fasting. And he actually fasted, even though there's nobody watching him and he could have eaten. That is my understanding of discipline, okay? It shouldn't take somebody looking at you for you to say, I will be accountable. It shouldn't take IMF looking over your shoulders for you to say, I will do or try to do the right thing. And it's a cultural thing, I guess. And then it's also a certain level of commitment and political will, where you begin to look at the long-term sustainability of your nation. I don't want to even talk about just the economy, because there are generations upon generations beyond us, and we need to be committed to creating something that is solid, something that is robust for them, and then say that today we are willing to pay that price for that future. Just like what I'm saying with regards to our long-term goals. Even if it's tough now, do you say that let me cut corners, let me do this? And if somebody's looking at my shoulders, then even though it's painful, because discipline is painful, and yet you need to commit and be willing to pay that price of accepting and enduring the pain. Adaptivity quotient or adversity quotient is the other thing that we are looking at. In times like this, we want to see how resilient are you, to what extent are you able to handle the adversity, the challenges that you are going through. And it varies from person to person. You could be immunized where you are exposed to difficulty, and because you have been immunized and you have a greater tendency to be calm in the midst of adversity. Whereas if you don't have any immunization, if you don't have any exposure, and it's always been rosy life, then you just want to continue with that rosiness, even when you should exercise some restraint. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that this one is a big challenge, because I'm not sure if our political leaders are actually willing to submit to this discipline without a cane on their head. And
I think this is where we should hold them accountable.
Yes.
I think sometimes we're a bit too laid back, and I don't know, there are factions that also benefit from the lack of discipline, and therefore will undermine anybody that rises up to demand accountability and even brand you to have a certain political
affiliation, or you are
affiliation.
MPP, depending upon who is in power.
Calling for, yeah, exactly. But I think at the micro level, we should look at how we train our children. We shouldn't just, and then ourselves, we should also exercise that restraint so that our adversity quotient can build up over time, and then we can say no and actually carry through with it, hold our grounds. Thank you.
Ebenezer is wondering, is it not because of the way we do our things as a country, it appears that monies are rather in the hands of individuals and corporate groups instead of the national purse? He's wondering, is that a reason? Is that actually a fact? And is that a reason why we have this problem? Actually, in all economies, where is the money? Is it not in the individuals and the corporates? Please, your comments on that.
I'm not sure if I understand this question very well. My interpretation of this is, when you talk about government not having the funds and the funds being in the hands of individuals, are you meaning that when we look at individuals' bank balances, they have huge balances than what we have on the government revenue side? Because individuals are supposed to be taxed, and the taxes that we pay is what aggregates and goes into the hands of the government, and government also has access to borrow both locally and internationally, like we have done. Now, my first thought is that if we are stimulating the economy to grow, and we have more people, more individuals, more corporates expanding the activities they undertake, then what will come to you as tax revenue would also be significant. I'm also aware that in our country, we have quite some corporations that are tax exempt for one reason or the other. And so we are starving ourselves of much needed tax revenue because of tax holidays that we've given to some institutions. Another area is property tax. We have wealthy people who own multiple properties and who should be taxed on the properties, but I'm not too sure how effectively our property tax regime is working. Okay, and so that is another area where we could look. And I'm sorry, it's difficult for me to say that money is in the hands of individuals or the government, because this is my understanding that what is in the hands of the individuals gets taxed so that we will aggregate some on the government side in order to finance government expenditure. And it is also of concern that sometimes what has been mobilized has been spent in ways that does not seem very sound when it comes to accountability of how those resources were spent. Thank you.
Actually, Ebenezer, in every proper, normal, functioning economy, the money is generated by the individuals and the corporates. And government tax the individuals and corporate and use it for public activities. Our challenge has been whether the individuals are generating enough. We have a mass of our people who are not working. I mean, thousands and hundreds of thousands of students finish universities and they are not working. So our tax generation is also weak. And then we have the little that we generate, our political class just steal it. Me, I don't want to mince the word. They are stealing the money. They just blowing it and they are paying themselves like gods. People don't work. They just go into government. The next morning, they are driving V8s and they are giving projects and inflating the prices and getting some into their pocket. So it's a mismanagement. That is bringing us to this point. And that discipline that Doris is talking about, if individuals at our level, we don't discipline ourselves, if we become leaders at the government or national level, it's the same way. I mean, look at the Auditor General reports. Not even at the ministerial level, at the different level, municipalities level, accountants level, procurement level, everybody is stealing. The whole country has become like a group of thieves. And that is going to take us to the IMF every other 2 years. So thank you for the lessons on discipline that you're sharing with us. We need to be very, very disciplined. But Richmond has a question, and he says his question is from the insurance perspective. He says, per the death haircut, insurance is affected by a less percentage. I don't know if that is true because they are also fighting. Would you advise us to patronize risk policies such as funeral or non-risk like investments? So Richmond's question is about insurance. His statement of fact that insurance are affected less by the haircut. You want to confirm that? And he was asking whether your advice would be for us to patronize risk policies. I don't know if that is risk policies such as funeral or non-risk policies such as investment. I think it's the other way around, but yes.
Thank you very much. We always invest with a goal in mind. So what is the financial goal that you are investing towards? My understanding when it comes to a funeral policy would be that you are investing towards a certain eventuality. Okay. And I stand to be corrected. I'm not sure when you say, should you invest in risk policy or investment policy? What is your objective? Let that be your focus and select that vehicle that will get you to your objective. If it is towards a certain funeral, then by all means, don't I don't know. I don't want to think that you are aiming to benefit from somebody's death. I have seen people patronize the insurance policy for funeral insurance, and it has helped them give a befitting farewell to a loved one. I'm not aware that people collect their money as this is my investment bonus because I invested in it. I'm not sure if that is what is being done. And I cannot confirm that insurance companies are being affected less. I think this conversation is about how much your exposure really is. And I think that the extent of your exposure to the domestic debt exchange would actually determine to what extent you are being impacted. And then, like all the financial institutions, there are provisions to help them manage the liquidity implications of supporting the domestic debt exchange because they are crucial to achieving the certain minimum threshold for a successful achievement of the debt sustainability target of 55% debt to GDP.
Good. Thank you so much. There are a few more questions I have here, but I'll ask Kofi if you can share with us the growth journey and the put your dream to the test quickly, and then we'll come back as Doris will take some water. We have about 15 minutes to the end. So let's take a short break and come back to continue the questions.
Navigating through life without a coach or a guide can be very deceiving, making you come to think that you have achieved the highest or the best you can ever, or you have made the best of decisions. But until you become very intentional and take a good stock of your life, you would not realize that it's a mistake.
Pain helps you to come out of your comfort zone.
The law of intentionality and the fact that learning is a lifelong journey if you want to be significant. Emphasis on significance.
Previously, I used to be very unintentional about the things I do when it comes to my family, my work, my Christian life, and basically everything that I do.
In the pursuit of that growth, there are gaps. There are gaps that we need to conquer. These gaps include the knowledge, perfection, mistake, inspirational, timing, and assumption gap.
And I will encourage you to be part of CTL Africa's 15-week growth journey.
I encourage you all out there who need to live their life to be part of CTL Africa's growth journey.
Please take advantage of this program and your life will never be the same.
Thank you very much, CTL Africa, and continue to impact the world. God bless.
Do you have a dream? Do you have a vision? Do you have a goal for your life? And will your goal be realized? What do you need to realize it? Is the goal your own? Have you counted the costs of that goal? Do you know what you need to be able to achieve that goal? Do you really want to be successful at achieving that goal? My name is Samuel Ayim, CEO of the Center for Transformational Leadership in Africa, and I personally want to invite you to our upcoming masterclass, Put Your Dream to the Test. It's a set of questions that we're going to give you answers to ahead concerning your vision, your dream, so that you are sure that your vision and your dream will be achieved. Join our one-day masterclass on the 19th, 20th, 26th, or 27th of January 2023. Or you can join our weekend class on the 21st and 22nd, or the 28th and 29th January from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and register, because it's going to give you the resources, the ideas, the tools that will ensure that your dreams don't remain as dreams, your goals don't remain as goals, but that they are achievable. We're going to equip you to be successful. Make a date with us. Register now for our masterclass and you will not regret it.
Thank you, Kofi. And for all of you, to put your dream to the test, we're having another session next week. And by request, popular request, we're going to have this program hopefully for every month to maybe the middle of the year. So just look out for the next date for Put Your Dream to the Test. We're also starting another cohort of the growth journey from next week, from the first week of February. That is on Thursdays. We're having one group running on Tuesdays, and we are starting another group running on Thursday. Every group is not more than 15 people. So please register for any of those groups. Doris, there's a question for you. A senior finance person want to know. And Doris, if you are with us, the question is trust gone? We said no IMF. Now we are in IMF. We said no haircut. it is more than a haircut. In fact, actually, some people's head are being cut. It's a head cut. Individuals are not included. Now individuals are included. So the question is, what is the guarantee that T-bills will not be included, especially as T-bill rates are so high? That is indicative of very high risk. And is that right? So, Doris, that's a question for you. Do we have
Thank
trust?
You. This question is coming from the CEO of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Robert Jatto. And yes, the Edelman's Trust Barometer, which measures trust across institutions, public, private, media, has shown a continuous decline in the level of trust. Okay. And I believe that this scenario is no exception. In leadership, it's very important that we are consistent in our declarations and assurances. And unfortunately, we have on record conflicting assurances and announcements and pronouncements. And this does not augur well for trust building in a world where trust is already a challenge. So that would be my first comment. And the second comment having to do with the risk level of Treasury securities is also true. 50% inflation and interest rates hovering, approaching that is not acceptable. It's an indication of how much risk there is. And I think in the last auction, there was a 20% shortfall, which tells you that the investing public is also adjusting to the perception of the risk that that particular investment vehicle carries. So yes, our risk-free investments currently carry an appreciable level of risk. Have I covered all the aspects? There was a question as to...
I think you've answered that question, and the point about leadership and trust is very important, because trust is the foundation of leadership. And yes, if we get to a point where we're losing trust in our leaders and their pronouncement, when they say things and we cannot say, yes, he said so, because in a lot of markets, the words of the leaders move the markets. The people believe what the leaders say. So if we've come to a point where our leaders say is A, next time is X, is B, next time is Z, then it's going to be a serious problem. And all of us here who are leading at our different levels should be mindful of that. There's one question I think we are getting today, and there's quite a few questions, but one question that I cannot skip. Is it time for us to withdraw all our money and buy dollars and keep under our bed? Is that also an option for us? Because I didn't see that in your options.
I'm sorry, but that is not an option. I would not sit here as a banking and finance professional, not for any selfish or personal gain reasons, that you withdraw your funds from the bank or the financial institutions, number one, because doing that will accelerate the consequences that you likely would suffer from a crashing financial system. And so you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And so I would not encourage you to pull out all your funds. And don't forget the fact that on top of whatever benefits that you gain from having your funds in the bank by way of interest, you also enjoy a lot of safe custody. Your money is protected and kept safe for you. And so when you pull it out of the banking or the financial system to put it under your bed, your private safe, etc., you may not be able to provide the level of security or safety that you want to give to your money. And then the second part is, should I now invest my money in foreign currency? Investing in foreign currencies is an option, but over the years, we have seen that the level of appreciation tracked over a number of years has not beaten other investment options. And so you want to do that carefully. If you sit in a position where you will need supply of those foreign currencies, maybe you travel often, or you have to make payments that are in foreign currency, and therefore you have a genuine need for the foreign currency, then by all means, it makes sense for you to position yourself in there. But if you don't have need for foreign currency, I know that the period before the spike in December, some people who were speculating on the dollar and other foreign currencies had taken position, even though they would have no need for the foreign currency. And then when there was signal of a decline or recovery of the cedi, they suddenly tried to rush to the market to sell off because they are not going to have need for that hard currency. And they only crystallize the losses for themselves, because you want to quickly sell off, the other person wants to quickly sell off, everybody wants to sell off, and then the gain that you should have made on your investment in the currency is lost. And so look at yourself. If you are going to need foreign currency to settle some obligations, fair. If you're able to find a foreign currency to buy, that may make sense. But if you won't have need for it, I would not recommend it as an investment option.
Thank you very much. Maybe one last question, because our time is up, but it's important. As things are going, a lot of employees are getting apprehensive. On the other hand, business leaders are also worried that business environment is getting tough, investments are squeezed. And the question the business people are asking is, should we lay off our staff at this point in time and wait till things get better? Employees are also very apprehensive. Are we going to be laid off? What advice will you give to both sides?
Thank you very much, Sam. So the business environment is tough, agreed. And during the tough time, that is when you actually would take actions and position yourself to emerge as, if you like, the successful warrior, the victor out of these difficult times. It's very easy for us to say that this is too tough for me, I'm closing shop, I'm sending everybody home. And I want you as a business person to think about the implications and what that does to society. Okay, that person that is going home has dependents. And while you may not be able to pay their usual salaries, this is a time where we may want to hold each other's hand and say, let's agree to keep everybody at post. Let's all settle for 50% of what we should have earned just during the season, so that we can all earn our daily bread. Yes, I know the times are hard and you don't want to think about a reduction in how much you are earning, but it's potentially better than going home and having nothing. And so I think businesses should adopt a very human face when it comes to what decisions they take with regards to right sizing, okay, rationalizing the staff numbers, and then also operate within your capacity, whatever is possible for you to do during the season. For some businesses, they may not be able to operate to the scale, their full capacity, but you may be able to produce to a certain level. It's still good enough. There are customers that patronize you and may need you to be in production or providing that service. You may have infrastructure set up to help you deliver that service. We call it fixed cost. And when you shut down, you are still incurring that cost anyway without generating anything back. So remain in business, find ways to prioritize your spending, and also innovative ways that help you to promote your business and to bring in the revenues. As much as possible, you want to cut off all expenses that you can do without. You want to look at options where you can improvise and make do with something that is not the usual input that you would have used. but which will help you to remain in business during this phase. Remember that you see, brand building takes time. Your business track record is running with time. That break could make you lose whatever loyalty that you have built with your customers. And so be there for them. You may not be able to provide them as much as you used to, but be there, see what is possible for you to provide as a way of supporting them. There's also the option of diversification. There's no rule that says that if your business was providing movie production, you must by all means do movie production, even when the season is such that people are not paying any attention to movie production. I'm just using this as a random example. People are living and therefore continuing to live, continuing to eat, because it's brands that sell. Somebody may buy a Nike food if they see that this is Nike food. And so look at what else you might do with your brand that helps you to remain in business and remain relevant. And then for the people, think again if you want to send them home. Perhaps you may negotiate things that, options that have them coming to work, working a certain number of times a day, just so that they may earn something little to help support themselves and their families. Thank you.
All right. I think there may be so many. When we talk about money, we can't finish. But I want to thank you so much, Lady Reverend Doris Ahiati, for these insightful discussions and answering all the questions. And for all of you who ask questions, we want to thank you. The discussion on finance doesn't end. Doris is always available. So you bring in more questions. When I get more questions from you, I will bring her back to come and address some of those questions. But I think for me, what is staying with me is discipline in our finances as individuals, as a family, as a nation. If we cannot discipline ourselves, if we cannot work hard to increase the revenue, discipline ourselves in our expenditure, and invest in areas that will bring more revenue, cut off the corruption, cut off the shows, cut off all the, the extravagance that is killing us, then we're going to, as an individual, you're going to suffer. As a family, you're going to have crisis. And as a nation, we're going to have crisis. So, Doris, your last final word, and then we will close the curtains.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've seen some very beautiful comments in the chat box I want to add to whatever I'll say as my closing remarks. And it's coming from a lady I respect a lot and look up to. She mentors me, Lady Sarah Jesse. She says, the bottom line I'm getting is the need for us to work on our mindsets. We absolutely need a mind shift in what we understand as discipline and accountability, like your dad, my dad, did even when no one is watching. And we have the power to change our leadership. We have to take our civil duties seriously and vote seriously, so that whenever they take office, they will sit up and be responsible. I think we go to sleep. So I absolutely agree with Lady Sarah Jesse there. My final words are that, hey, the times are difficult, but it's going to be over at some point. Don't forget about your long-term goals and aspirations. I like a Warren Buffett quote that says that it is when the tide goes down that we see who has been swimming naked. Don't be caught naked. And remember that however tough this moment, this season is, some time will come and it will be in the past, like the 2008 financial crisis became history, and now we are facing a new one. There was the COVID-19 pandemic year when we didn't know what the future was going to hold. But today we have been in business, and then we are faced with this crisis, which we are now concerned about again. The cycles go up and they come down, and they go back up and they come down. So please be hopeful that there is an end in the future, and don't suspend your long-term goal, actions that you will take towards your long-term goal, just because the season today is difficult. keep thinking what is possible and take action on that. And remember, to be successful financially, you definitely need to take discipline and accountability seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on that note, I want to thank you all for joining, spending some part of your Saturday evening with us. We encourage you next week, we will come with another leader with a great topic for our discussion. I want to wish you all good night. God bless you. Tomorrow being Sunday, let's find some time for God. Let's go to serve Him. God bless you all. Have a good night and enjoy the rest of your weekend. This has been Samuel on the Leadership Platform with Doris. God bless you. Bye-bye.
We spend a lot of time developing our professions, but we don't spend time developing ourselves. Look, as a leader, as a professional, you have to grow. You have to grow yourself. And to be able to grow yourself, you need to know yourself. A lot of us are not achieving the maximum we can achieve because we have not invested in our personal growth. So we are bringing you this special studies based on John C. Maxwell's book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And we're going to just spend time with you and help you go through the principles that you need to be able to grow your person, to become a better person. Because if you become a better person, you become a better leader, you become a better father, you become a better professional. Do not miss this opportunity, as the masterclass is going to be very practical and discussional. It is going to be a limited number of people. So please register now to be part of the program.